A little chilly out this morning, but I understand it's 10 degrees warmer than it was yesterday, so bask in the warmth. But thank you all for coming. We will now call the meeting of the December State Board of Education to order. Would you please call the roll, Denise?
Patrick McPherson.
Here.
Maureen Nichols.
Here.
Patricia Tim.
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Present.
John Witzel.
Here.
Rachel Wise.
Here.
Patsy Ko-Johns. Lisa Fricke.
Here.
7 present, 1 absent. And Commissioner Bloomstead.
Is also here.
I forgot you yesterday,
And I didn't have to
too.
go look for him. He was right here.
At 9.
I'll put that on my...
Would you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Information regarding the Open Meetings Act is posted on the east wall of this room on the south side of the door. We have live web streaming, which is available through the State Board of Education website, www.education.ne.gov/State Board. So we welcome anyone who is watching our live streaming. And I would like to remind board members and also people in the audience, or no, you're not on the microphones yet, thank you. Remind our board members to engage their microphones, and hopefully I will remember that too. And turn them off when you're done speaking, and please turn off your cell phones. That's for everybody. Please turn off your cell phones. So I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the November 8th and 9th State Board of Education meeting.
So move.
Second.
Rachel, John. The motion was made by Rachel and seconded by John. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, your votes please.
Lisa Fricke.
Yes.
Patsy Ko-Johns. Excuse me. Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim.
Yes.
Maureen Nichols.
Yes.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The motion passes. Thank you. Commissioner, are there any recommended changes for today's agenda?
The only change is actually based on the conversation we had yesterday around the civic readiness definition, and it was the committee's desire to actually have that pulled back to do some additional work in committee, and so that item at 7.2.8.1, I think, to be removed. So,
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve today's agenda as amended?
So move.
Second.
Patrick, okay, it's been moved by Patrick and seconded by Rachel. Is there any other discussion on the agenda? If not, your votes please.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
Maureen Nichols.
Yes.
Lisa Fricke.
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim.
Yes.
And Patsy Ko-Johns. 7 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, we will move into our public comment period. Thanks to all of you who are attending. We do not have any requests for special appearance, so we will move to the regular comment period. I do have 9 cards this morning that have signed in, and we have, we'll speak in the order that I was given the cards, and I will try to remember to announce who's going to come up and speak, and then who's coming after them, so that you'll be ready to come up. You will have 5 minutes, and then we will ask that you sit down and let the next person speak. So the first person that signed in was Wayne Smith, and Nancy Carr will be following him. Good morning, Mr. Smith.
Good morning.
The microphones are on, so all you need to do is sit down, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to speak on defining civic readiness.
I thank you for the opportunity. My name is Wayne Smith. And just starting after the Constitution Convention, Benjamin Franklin was asked, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy? Franklin's answer was, a republic if you can keep it. We the people need to continue to govern ourselves by educating citizens so they are well prepared. That is why civic readiness is so important. Eric Metaxas says the gamble of our founders was one that placed tremendous trust in the people to whom they bequeathed this fragile form of government. Excuse me. Why did they trust the people to keep the republic? Because they were prepared for the job of keeping it. The question of our day is still, can we keep it? I believe it has been slipping away over the last several years. The proposed definition of civic readiness needs to have some specifics and not be so general that educators can teach whatever they want. In the civic knowledge section, the word Constitution does not appear. The phrase history that shapes the present is not specific enough. I can envision an educator teaching history and never talking about the Constitution. In a national survey, only 1/3 of Americans could name all 3 branches of government, and 1/3 couldn't name any. Limited government needs to be understood. If they understand the Constitution, they will see how our government is operating outside the limits established in the Constitution, and they will understand the true nature of the administrative state, also called the 4th branch of government. Students need to understand the free enterprise system. It has lifted billions of people out of poverty. Capitalism is a very moral system because it is based on choice and not force. People need to understand the benefits of the free enterprise system. In the civic skills section, please remove the phrase community organizing. In civic dispositions, I suggest that the word democracy be replaced with constitutional republic or democratic republic, since we are not a pure democracy. Patriotism needs to be included in the definition. Gratitude should be added. If students are grateful, they will be positive contributors to society. Ungrateful people are not happy and they think they are owed something. Virtuous is a disposition that you don't hear about today. Virtuous was a word used by our founders, and it should be included in the definition. Alexis de Tocqueville traveled to America in 1831. He said it was the goodness of America and America's people that made America work. He saw the secret to American freedom was American virtue. Benjamin Franklin said, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. I hope our grandchildren don't look back and ask why we didn't protect our republic and freedoms. I also hope they will benefit from the final definition of civic readiness.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Okay, we are ready for Ms. Carr, and following her will be Jay Sears. Good morning. You'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Well, I am delighted that the decision and the issue is going to be delayed. So that's what's going to be my final request today. And I did want to explain just a little bit. There was an article in the newspaper about this. Mr. Epler was quoted on a lot of it, and there was comments about Senator Chris' bill on ethics. Well, at the last minute, like 5 days before the hearing, he changed his bill. It didn't have anything to do with the civics test. What he did is he took the Americanism statute and deleted everything in it that had to do with Americanism. I suggested that you get a copy of that bill and look at it. And Mr. Epler suggested that Senator Chris' bill and this definition of civics had a lot in common. So I found that a very frightening thought, because it actually eliminated everything to do with Americanism. So I'm here today to express my strong opposition to the Department of Education's civic readiness definition. Since the topic is about American citizenship in a constitutional republic, I would want all definitions to be focused on preparing our children for their future roles and their responsibilities as Americans. I do not see this in the draft now being considered for adoption by the board. For instance, under civic knowledge, the knowledge referred to is general and about government and not specific to our American government. The knowledge I want our children to have is about who they are as Americans and the special way our American government works. This has to begin in kindergarten, and all the knowledge they need to learn is clearly and specifically listed in our Americanism statute. Under civic skills, there's an emphasis on community organizing and other collective action, which is simply political activism, not civics. In America, we want our children to learn about their individual rights and their individual responsibilities as citizens, and how to become a self-governing citizen by their examples and their actions. And this will enable them to choose or to become governing representatives who do the active work of government in our republic. Ours is a government, remember, of, by, and for the people. That's each of us. And this is the role for which civics should prepare our children. In the civic action section, I have much the same objections as to the civic skills. Here again, the emphasis is placed on others and persuading them to your view as a kind of a collective. I believe the emphasis should be on our children acquiring a good understanding of our important documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution with our Bill of Rights, and the civic action should be actions taking in defense of those documents to be better implement them in our public life. This would include, of course, voting and running for office, volunteering, civic capacities, and volunteering for the military, etc. Now, under civic dispositions, I object to the use of the word democracy as a description of our form of government, when we live in a constitutional, representative republic, and those are the ideals to which the students must be committed. The draft also states that they have a, quote, a concern for the constitutional rights and freedoms of others, unquote, when this should actually be a concern for the constitutional rights and freedoms of every individual citizen. We are a country of individuals, not groups, and not to be infringed upon by anyone, including the government. I also object to the reference to public, quote, public welfare, safety, and fairness, unquote. These are broad generalities without much meaning. I believe the emphasis should be upon, quote, a recognition of the fact that in America, we enjoy liberty under law, and the law applies to everyone, as does the liberty to all those who obey the law. If the law is broken, there is also justice, which is to apply equally to all who are guilty.
Time, Mrs. Carr.
Is it time?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, I would urge you to reject this plan and definition, and encourage you to come with one that will fit the Americanism statute.
Thank you,
so much.
and we appreciate you giving us your remarks here too
All
as
right, and there
well.
was another sheet.
Yes,
that
thank you
has
very
the other
much.
one. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Jay Sears, and following him will be Richard Zerke. Good morning.
Good morning. For the
5
record,
minutes.
I'm Jay Sears. I represent the 28,000 educators of the Nebraska State Education Association, and I would like to speak to just 2 items today. First of all, I would like to speak to, if I can find all your numbering system. There it is. 7.2.B.1. That's actually going to be 3. I'm sorry, I don't do well in math. We'd encourage you to approve the department's summative assessment administration reporting plan and technical reports. Thanks to Valerie and Jeremy and all the people that work in the assessment department and get all that data ready for you. The second action item is 7.2.C1, and that's encouraging you to approve the changes to Rule 23. And then the last one also has to do with the rule. We'd encourage you to adopt the proposed revisions to Rule 15, which is your action item 7.3.A.2.
Thank you, Jay.
Sure, and so you all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and see you in January.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Zerke. And following Mr. Zerke will be Jeff Cole.
Good morning. My name is Richard Zerke.
Reset the time just a second, Richard.
Thank you.
We don't want to start.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah,
Countdown.
there we go.
We'll give you 7 seconds.
Yeah.
Thank you. 10 would be fine. Okay, here I go.
Well, no, we have to treat everyone equal. So,
Okay,
we have to do the 5.
I'll stop at 5. I'll stop at 5, you can put it down. Unless you've been living under a rock, the name Scott Frost is here in Lincoln for a while. I think we got 9 months of football without a game, okay? And what is Scott gonna do? What do we hope he all does? Let's just go back to the way it was. Bunch of W's, a bowl game. I think everybody that's gonna speak on this definition of civics, let's just go back to the way it was. We don't need a page full of definitions. We have the Constitution. We have our forefathers. We don't need to sit around and create words and phrases of community organizer. The first question on a test that you want to be an American citizen is, and I find this because this is a free beer for me whenever I'm in the bar, is what's the supreme law of the land? And everybody always goes, oh my gosh, I don't know. The answer obviously is the Constitution. So they buy me a Coors Light and I'm happy and we go on. But I think just like the passion we have for Nebraska football, the people that are going to speak here today about this and myself have just that much passion about civics and learning and loving the country. A bunch of us are veterans. We've served. We've taken 2, 4, 6, 20 years out of our life. And you all know some people like this that have been in the military and served. The LB 14 that was proposed last year, that didn't go anywhere, and the Americanism law, the words they took out, loyalty, patriotic, citizenship, they took the word America out 4 times of 79724. Fully aware of liberties, justice, democracy, American, hearts and minds of young people, those were taken out of the bill. Put in multiculturalism, put in community organizer. So you see where this is going. Civics wasn't hard when I was in high school. I'm a Northeast Rocket, class of 19, so I didn't want anybody to know how old I was. So. But these are the points and the passion that when people come up here and take time out of their day and talk to you about, I think you, and you know it too, you know the right thing to do. The last part of LB 14, they took out in section 7, the superintendent of each school district shall be held directly responsible. That's your job. You're directly responsible for this. And that would be the end of my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Okay, Jeff, would you please come forward? And following Jeff is Jacob Campbell.
Great, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jeff Cole, and I'm here on behalf of Beyond School Bells, and we're Nebraska's statewide after-school network. And really appreciate the work that the board has done over the years in developing these kinds of one-page statements that provide educators working outside of the formal school space with an opportunity to do kind of some crosswalks between what we're trying to do in the out-of-school learning environment and what the goals and the direction of the department and individual districts are. We feel this is very important. When you look at a young person's life, only 18.1% of a young person's life is spent in a formal classroom environment. And so we really need to think about how we can be intentional about partnering with outside organizations so that young people can get the full range of supports from their community they need to be successful in careers and in life and be prepared to contribute to a vital democracy. So I really didn't anticipate this being controversial. I thought this was a very good summary. This is not meant to be a constitution. We have that document. It's not meant to be a Bill of Rights. We have that document. It's not meant to be standards. We have that document. It's not meant to be LB 14. That's working through the process. This is an appropriate document for people like me who need to help others who are trying to educate our youth to understand what those fundamental components of a democracy are. We're not working in isolation. None of this is in isolation. I think we're trying to create kind of a false, bogeyman here. This is a very straightforward document about the things young people need to know and to be able to do in order to be, civically, in terms of its definition, civic readiness. Just to go back to the Scott Frost analogy, football is a very important part of Nebraska's life, but I don't think we'd want to go back to the days where when kids had a concussion, you just stuck the smelling solid in there, get them back out there and risk permanent brain damage. I don't think anybody wants that. I think we can build on what we know. That's one of the elements of a critical thinking democracy. And I like the word democracy. I appreciate the word democracy being in this document because that's what we are. We're a government of the people. And I think as we think about how we build on the knowledge that we've developed over time, civic standards can get better. The definition of civic readiness can get better. And I think that's what you've done with this document. You provided us a guide. So it's not just the expectation that teachers in a classroom are going to be, moving forward on. It's going to be something that, as I'm reaching out to partners and communities, we can say, a fundamental aspect is getting young people to understand that they have voice, that they have an opportunity to build a future for themselves. And I see things in the civic skills, the civic actions, civic dispositions that are in line with what we would like to do. Obviously, there's a lot of concern politically these days. It seems like you can't have a conversation about anything without getting political. So I understand the concern about community organizing, considering that our former president was a community organizer, and that seems to be a huge disconcerting point for people. Take community out of it. Organizing is an important part. I don't think any one of you got elected to your office without organizing. I think we all need to understand we need to organize. So while we are a country of individuals, we are a country that comes together for collective action to move progress forward. And I think, we want to look back to the glory days. Well, there's a lot of things that we can look back to that we shouldn't be proud of as a country. But I think we're moving forward in progress, and I think we can take great pride in what we've accomplished in America because we're not, paying some kind of tribute to a false god. Now, obviously I was a social studies teacher, so I'm kind of going off on my social studies rant, but I'm also a parent. And I've spent a lot of time in communist countries. I was an exchange student in communist Poland, and I was able to live in communist China. And those are countries that really are very specific about what you can and can't do in service of your country. I recently understand that the Chinese are going to be persecuting people who don't stand at allegiance during their national anthem. Now, I hope we're not going in that direction with this Americanism movement. The strength of America is our multicultural democracy that allows people to have different voice. So I'm just afraid that this is something that, when you start talking about it, it's easy to get very emotional, but we need to have these kinds of discourses. This is the great thing about this topic. It promotes
Jeff.
civic discourse. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Jacob Campbell, and following him will be Paul von Baron.
Good morning, and thank you for your time. My name is Jacob Campbell, and I want to give you a little bit of sense of my background before I continue, and to clearly state that I'm here on vacation time, and that these statements are my own. In 2008, at the age of 17 and as a junior in high school, I joined the Nebraska Army National Guard. In 2014, I graduated from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where I studied to be a social studies teacher. During college, I taught at Mickle Middle School, Lincoln North Star, and Lincoln Northeast. The military threw a wrench in my post-graduation plans as the deployment to Qatar sat on the horizon. In anticipation of that deployment, I accepted a position as a Children and Family Service Specialist, otherwise known as CPS. I then went to work, when that deployment fell through to me, I then went to work at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Office of Admissions, where I served students in the Omaha area. While at the university, I began began as a student in the University of Nebraska Omaha's Masters of Public Administration program, and have since accepted a job in the Nebraska legislature. My military service ended in 2016 after serving 8 years, and additionally, my wife served 6 years in the Nebraska Army National Guard. I have 2 brothers that served in the military, 1 sister, a father and a brother who were volunteer firefighters, and 2 brothers in the State Department. So public service has been my whole life. Yesterday, Ms. Wise commented that the state needs to be more intentional about addressing civics in the classroom, and I couldn't agree more. However, I think the proposed definition of civic readiness misses the mark and lacks foresight. How is it that in all my years as a student and in preparation to teach high school social studies, I had never heard the term Americanism until the last month? If there's a lack of intentionality in Nebraska schools, it is a lack of intentionality in following the current guidelines that already show how to create civic readiness. The Americanism statute is a good one, and it appears as if some of the proposed civics definition is taken already from that statute. In my opinion, the current definition has 3 major flaws, the proposed definition. The first is that it doesn't include the words America or American. If we're to create civic readiness in America, students must have an understanding of what it means to be an American. This definition could fit for any country in the world, but being an American is a unique privilege and one that we should be proud of. The second is the emphasis on community organizing. We are in the midst of the most divisive, politically charged, and overstimulated culture the United States has ever seen. Sure, information is available at our fingertips, but the reliability and accuracy of that information is questionable at best. An emphasis on community organizing, as described by the proposed definition, is an extremely dangerous one. I'm sure that each one of you can think of an occasion where the community organized around an issue under completely false pretenses or to detrimental ends. The consideration of this definition lacks foresight in the age of technology and instant gratification. The third is the makeup of the committee who created it. And I understand that everybody had expertise in that, and they studied pretty hard to get there. But at the university, they often speak about first-generation students, or students whose parents did not graduate with 4-year degrees. I'm one of those students, and I can tell you that I learned more about what it means to be an American or civic readiness by growing up in the small town of Bertrand, raised by parents who were a grain elevator operator and a school custodian than I ever did in the NDE classroom. My parents and my friends' parents were the best examples of civically ready individuals I've ever known. And the reason was because they were involved. They were volunteer firefighters, school board members, village board members, county road workers, farmers, babysitters, hairdressers, t-ball coaches, and basketball coaches. Most of all, they knew that to do life well, we have to be members of a community. There's nothing about community organizing that captures those nuances of community life and civic readiness. And then additionally, perhaps the teaching of the instruction of civics should include something on student loans or home mortgages, as those issues are threaten the civic life of today's students. And then, keeping with the Nebraska football similarities, I'll say the definition of the board, considering, is the Mike Riley of definitions. It's humble, it doesn't want to offend anyone, it has great intentions and gave it a good try, but it won't take Nebraskans where they want to go. It won't unite the citizenry, and it won't instill a pride in community, state, and country that would make Tom Osborne or Abraham Lincoln proud. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Paul Meyer is, will you please come up? It's your turn.
He said Paul Von Baron.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did. Thank you. I got out of order. Yes, I will declare myself out of order. Then, Mr. Meyer, after this.
You might have done me a favor. The official title is Dr. Paul Von Baron, but that's mostly useful for dinner reservations, so Paul is fine. I've recently become more involved in education than I probably ever planned to be. And it's been an interesting time because I'm a business and sciences guy. That's what I've been held accountable to, been involved in all my life. And I'm used to a world where if I ask for money or propose a project or something, I really have to define it, and then I have to explain how I'm going to measure it. I think the thing that's interesting about these standards is not what's said, but what's not said. We have a very specific statute in Nebraska that a couple of people have referred to, and if you dig into the statute, it specifies scrutiny of textbooks, several hours of specific training every week, a week of based with constitutional emphasis, and I would defy probably anybody. I'll buy the gas, I'll buy the coffee, if you could take me to a school that does that. So right now, the training that we have specified for our students is, I don't believe is being done, and I think one of the jobs of this board, and I respect the fact that you don't want to control boards locally, but I think one of the jobs of this board is to make sure that we can at least measure what's being taught to our students and understand what's happening to them in the process. As I said, in another life, I've been surprised at the number of projects we prove educationally where we can't really hold ourselves to that level of discipline, where we say, yes, this is the right thing to do, or this is how we know that we're going to be able to measure it and assure that we're doing the right thing. I'll give you a couple examples. Number one, in your introduction, you talk about responsibilities, community, state, local, and the world. And that's all well and good. That's basically correct. But if I'm a teacher and trying to define what that means, or a school board, I can take that any direction that I want to go. I can entirely ignore our Nebraska statutes, and I can just focus on being good world citizens, which really doesn't equip those kids for a citizenship in the United States. Under knowledge, there's understanding how history shapes our present. Well, that's good. I think it's more aptly stated by what history has done or how we've messed up, and it's impacting us at present. It's not really history that shapes our present. It's how well we adhere to what we really believe. If you were to act right now based on the actions of your previous life, I hope you would be much more proud of them than I would be. I've learned from that history, but the only thing that has taken me through that has been the founding principles that my life needs to be based on. That's what we're talking about here. That's actually what's being ignored under our Americanism statute in Nebraska law, the word democracy, if you look that up, it's fundamentally a dangerous word, because what it says, the very first part of democracy is ruled by the majority. Sounds well and good, but if you think about it, it's soft anarchy. That lets you drift with every whim, unless you have an anchor, the anchor of a constitution and the nature of a republic. Democracy is not going to be what you want your students to have or to desire. One of the glaring facts would simply be our electoral college. I understand the popular vote in the last election. That came from 5 counties. 5 counties within the United States could rule Nebraska null and void. That's why students need to understand this is not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic, and without that, they will fail. We're setting them up for something that isn't going to work. Just simple things like concern for constitutional rights. As you look under dispositions, it's not concern, it's protection of constitutional rights. I can be very concerned all the while someone else's constitutional rights are being violated. But if we don't raise kids who are out actively trying to protect those rights, we failed. Your definition is well intended, but ultimately what it leaves you with is kids who come out. We already are showing that we don't have the basic undergirding of our Americanism statute, and we're leaving these standards this loose. We're risking kids that are going to come out truly not understanding where they are and subject to whatever whim they choose to drive on, and they'll never survive doing that. At very best, I would urge that you simply delay the vote and reconsider. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, and following Mr. Meyer will be Mrs. Pinkerton. Good morning.
Good morning. I hope everybody this morning has had their Kickapoo Joy Juice, which my wife calls coffee. My name is Paul Meyer, and I'm not here to really talk about the civics test. Everybody else behind me is and will be talking about that. I'm here to make an observation over the years. I come here as often as I can over the past number of years. Many of those people behind me are here month after month after month. Why? Nothing is happening. Nothing Nebraska values, American values is happening. This civics question will be passed by you as is. Why? Because you march lock, stock, and barrel with the liberal, left-leaning, anti-American NEA, and you will vote as Jay Sears tells you to vote. Otherwise, your campaign contributions will dry up. Now, I've noticed this over years of coming down here. There is, in this civics test, the reason I gave up 4 years of my retirement to run for the Miller School Board, and I ran for it 4 times, was because I found a deficiency even in Millard, which is, I think, one of the better school districts in the state. And I did get a few things changed, not as much as I would have liked. But there is so much more in this civics test that is important. I don't know how to say this, but it is imperative that we get back to the basics on this and forget about this all this socialism that's going on. I want Nebraska to be Nebraska. I don't want Nebraska to be like New York or California, where they had a survey out in California where 80% of the kids surveyed were more in favor of the ISIS flag and what it stood for than what the American flag and what it stands for. My wife says, why are you interested? You don't have any, you're out of school, your kids are out of school, my grandkids are out of school. And while I would like to have some great grandkids, thankfully, there's none on the horizon, because I really hate to think of the country that they are going to be growing up in if what continues on the path as it has in the last 8 out of 9 years, if that does continue. I would like to, I'm just going to close with one thing here, and I'm sure you all remember Nikita Khrushchev. This is said that he said this anyway, is that you Americans are so gullible. No, you won't accept communism outright, but we'll keep feeding you small doses of socialism until you finally wake up and find that you already have communism. And that is what's happening with all these new statements, all these new revised civics and everything else that's going on in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mrs. Pinkerton, and following her will be Lee Todd.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
Rachel Pinkerton, and I will join my fellow activist in thanking the committee for putting a hold on the definition based upon the Senator Groening pointing out that it does not reflect our Americanism statute as has been elaborated by previous speakers. The last couple of months, I've brought to your attention an event that happened in front of the Student Union on August 25th that exposed some concerning things about the culture on the UNL campus. I'm happy to say you may have noticed that the lecturer whose disgraceful behavior was recorded and broadcast across the country is not going to have her contract renewed. And because of some FOIA requested emails, there has been more light shed on this issue, and a couple of people resigned from the public relations department at UNO based upon that, and there has been some a shift in the administration away from trying to say this was isolated, and rather saying, well, maybe this is an opportunity. Thanks to the, well, in any case, I'm going to read to you my letter to the editor that appeared in the Omaha paper on November 21st under the title, Rooting Out Bias. University of Nebraska-Lincoln Chancellor Ronnie Green has been handed an opportunity to dramatically increase the intellectual integrity of our academic environment at UNL. Parentheses, Caitlin Mullen of Turning Point USA, a thoughtful sophomore with courage of her convictions about free markets and limited government, exposed political bias at UNL, on the UNL campus when she was targeted for harassment. And our Chancellor Green has a record in education, research, and business, uniquely qualifying him for the work ahead. Diligent and intelligent, he has the backbone needed to lead the effort to expose and eliminate bias at UNL. Credit goes to State Senators Steve Erdman, Steve Halloran, and Tom Brewer for their work, and those who made the public records request exposing emails regarding the university's initial response to the incident. I have had several email conversations back and forth with the chancellor. He has invited me to meet with him, and Dr. Von Barron has agreed to come as well. I have, from when I first got acquainted with Ronnie Green in the pages of the spring issue of the Nebraska magazine, I thought, this guy has a lot of skills, and he also has a point of view that could very much benefit by being expanded in a way that I think Dr. Von Barron, being a scientist leader who knows his way around a feedlot the way Ronnie Green is, would be uniquely able to help him. So I look forward to that. I got to, and as we've all been talking about at our kitchen tables and here this morning, there's a new excitement and pursuit of excellence and unity of purpose is really in fashion now after Scott Frost has given his talk. So I look forward to translating that into a working with the chancellor to identify obstacles to the pursuit of excellence and unity of purpose, which I think are fixable. And thank you so much to Lisa Fricke for going to the War on Women event. I really appreciate that, and everybody who showed interest in the speakers who were talking about Sharia. Powerful, very uncomfortable stuff, and I especially salute Lisa for getting out and hearing their story. So, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lee Todd, and then Senator Groney, and then we will, that will be the end of our public comment. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Lee Todd. I live in Lincoln, Nebraska. Grew up on a farm and a ranch in northern Nebraska. I have young children in the public school system, so some of the topics that we are talking about today are very much in my mind all the time. I have an older daughter who's 22, studying in the University of Nebraska. I've been very dismayed, and the only civics readiness that she's ever gotten is from me. The school has failed miserably. She has no idea as far as what are the first 5 freedoms that are guaranteed in the First Amendment. She has no idea really what the Bill of Rights is all about, and it's just been a travesty. I hear instead things like political correctness. I hear things like globalism, and this is certainly taking us down a path that is going to be our demise and our destruction at some point. It is coming unless we stop it. Milton Friedman, the great economist, once said that good intentions may be one thing, but we shouldn't judge programs based on good intentions. We should judge them on the results that they obtain. And it was on a July 2nd, I believe, that 56 people, highly irrational, virtually signed their death warrants. The war was going very badly. They were about to lose not only their country, but their lives, their estates, their families, their friends. Yet they signed off on that great document. And that great document is one of our foundational principles, which I have a great reverence for. And we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And finally, in closing, they affirmed, we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Folks, they did not, and many of them did die. Many of them lost their entire estates. Many of them lost all their property in the Revolutionary War. They did not base this, their commitment on political correctness. They did not base it on multiculturalism. They did not base it for sure on globalism. That was the problem. They based it on certain inalienable rights. They based it on the enumeration of the inalienable right that we have given to us by our creators, or by our Creator, excuse me. And they certainly did not base their signatures on that document due to some form of democracy. It was, in fact, a constitutional republic. And until we get that point across and the related points that come from that, we're going to fail, and we will fail miserably. Good intentions aside, we need to have a document, we need to have a plan, a ship on a course that's going to accomplish the things that need to be accomplished. We are unique, we are a great country, and I'm convinced of that because of that foundational document. The Federalist Papers, the Constitution of the United States, and the Declaration of Independence. That is what makes us great. Without those documents, we could be a myriad of different people, but without a ship, without a rudder on our ship, that is what gives us guidance, and that is what we need to adhere to. And anybody who wants to change that and thinks they have a better idea really needs, that burden of proof needs to be upon them. Because we have a document and documents and founding documents that have worked with our Constitution, worked with our country for years. And so I think we need to be very, very careful about what we decide to do at this point. So herein, what I would propose that we do is I would make the following suggestions. One, that an advisory board headed by Nancy Carr be empowered to craft a working definition of Americanism based on our constitutional republic and the promotion of said values as articulated in our founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, and our governing document, the United States Constitution. Number two, that this definition be aligned with existing statutes already on Nebraska books, namely Chapter 79, 724 to 727, and that all public schools be required to fulfill their obligation under said statutes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Groney? Good morning.
Thank you.
You will have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm just here as Mike Groney, citizen. I learned that when you get elected to something, you don't lose your rights. But I came because these folks behind me, originally I told them I'd be here. So I try to keep my promises on this day, but Commissioner Bloomstead was so kind to let me use that position yesterday of a state senator to have special privileges and discuss with you. But what I've heard today is we need a foundation. Civics is based on a foundation, and that is history and the God-given rights in the Declaration of Independence. Our youth have no idea why they need civics, why they vote, if they don't understand the history. Civics is history. That's why I was so against that definition. It does not start out with the history of who we are. We're Americans. Americanism is a good word. Never before in the history of man has the rights of man been honored that God has given us besides this country. I was reminded by an individual, no, but you didn't bring up Pearl Harbor yesterday. And I should have. That's not that far past in our history. Lives were lost. The men and women of this country died. Think about it. Not to protect our shorelines, but to free Europe twice. Right now we're in the Middle East to free individuals to have those rights. There's no other reason. Don't claim it's oil. It's a basic core belief that we have, that the wonderful rights we have in this country should be shared by others. We don't reflect the world should reflect us. Be proud of who we are and teach our children who they are and the heritage they have and that they have inherited from their forefathers, from the people who came before them. Don't tell them stories about the failures of man. Every man has his failures. Thomas Jefferson did. President Obama did. Tell them about the successes of man. Tell them about the history of what we accomplished here. It seems in our public schools we nitpick. There is no perfect man, there's only been one. We tell them about the negative. Tell them about the positives. The Americanism statute states it in there. Tell stories of our past, of the sacrifices that our forefathers have made. And I'm not just talking about the forefathers that created this country. I'm talking about your grandpa. I'm talking about your dad. I'm talking about your mother who went out at night and on the school board on a winter night or on the city council. Tell them those stories. Don't tell them that you have a right to do whatever you want. You do not. I look at this board. Do we tell them the American dream is alive? I was a dirt poor farm kid. I lived behind a vet clinic, worked my way to the university. I see Matt. I know where he came from, large family in Palisade, Nebraska. The American dream is alive. Do we tell our kids that anymore? In 79-725, it states in there. Teach them about a work ethic. Teach them about personal responsibility. I tell kids nowadays, show up for work 10 minutes early and pass a drug test and you'll be a foreman in 6 months. The American dream is alive. The definition should push that. Push that. The American dream is alive. We don't do that anymore. And if I do anything on the education committee and we change Americanism, America's great. This debate we're having between two different elected bodies is what America's all about. I don't criticize you guys that that you're social engineers. You're just sacrificing. I get paid $12,000. You guys get what? Zero. Yeah. So things are brought to you quickly, and and that's why the public comment is so important. But I'm going to pursue a better definition, and that word Americanism is going to stay in there because we are the greatest country in the world, and any word that has its base in the word America is a good word. Community organizing, I've done it. I've been on both sides of the aisle. I started the Western Nebraska Taxpayers Association. Right now I'm helping some farmers organize landowners for a common purpose. That you have a right to do that. But the word community organizing is paid political operatives. That's what the definition is in the United States right now. Paid political operatives. It does not belong in a definition of what it's civics and what it is to be an American. Get it out of there. Get the collective thing out of that. That's another political word. So anyway, I'll shut up and I thank you for working with me. And I told Matt we'll get together and talk about that LB 14 and any tweaks we do to the Americanism law, but we can work together on it. Don't have a bureaucrat write it for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And
One more comment.
yes.
I'll take my rare privilege to take one little comment. First of all, thanks again, Senator Grundy, for being here. And I think your point about how we will work together. One of my concerns in these types of debates is that people start to call out individuals as having motives or those types of things. We listen to public comment intentionally and purposefully to be able to gather that information and think about it. And this notion of having bureaucrats write it, we are also in public service. I describe myself sometimes as the world's worst bureaucrat. I get to do that to myself. But the reality is it's about our processes and our engagement. So I thank all of you for coming today. I don't want you ever left with the impression that this board doesn't try to do its due diligence for all of those conversations, that our staff does not try to do their due diligence for all of those conversations. And I appreciate the civil discourse on any particular topic, and I just wanted to take that moment in time to be able to say that. So thanks, everyone.
We are going to take a short break, but I am going to ask you to make it short because, and I do this all the time, we have hearings, and so we do need to move on with those, so thank you. I call the State Board of Education meeting in December back in session. We will move to item number 5 on our agenda, which is hearings, and I will turn it over to Leslie Donlin. Oh, that's right, I run hearing. I have to read all this stuff. Well, these people sitting on this side of the room really threw me off, because they usually sit over here. Okay, the State Board of Education is prepared to consider the disposition of case 79-09, Commissioner versus Eric Rybacki. The board has been provided with the record of the Nebraska Professional Practices Commission proceedings containing the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and recommendation of the commission. Excuse me. All the pleadings and exhibits and a written transcript of the NPPC hearing are marked by the State Board as Exhibit 1. The notice of a disposition hearing and the certified return seats are marked as Exhibit 2. If there's no objection, these will be received. Seeing none, we will first hear from a representative of the PPC, then the petitioner, and finally a representative of the respondent. Each representative will be given 10 minutes to present his or her statements. The board will not receive any additional evidence or testimony beyond that contained in Exhibits 1 and Exhibit 2. Will the representative of the Professional Practices Commission please come forward, be seated, and identify yourself?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Kelly Mothersbaugh, and I'm here representing the Nebraska Professional Practices Commission on the matter of Matthew L. Bloomstead versus Eric Rybacki. The respondent was employed by the Franklin Public Schools as a science teacher beginning with the 2015-2016 school year until his resignation was accepted by the school board on January 27, 2016. On or between August 13, 2015 and December 18, 2015, the respondent engaged in inappropriate physical contact with numerous female students. On January 27, 2016, the respondent was charged with 21 counts of child abuse, third-degree assault, and sexual assault of a child, including 11 felonies, in Franklin County, Nebraska, for actions that he took in the classroom. On March 27, 2017, in the Franklin County Court, pursuant to a plea agreement, the respondent was found guilty of contributing to the delinquency of a child, 2 Class 1 misdemeanor counts, and was sentenced to 60 days jail on each count to be served concurrently, 3 years of probation, and fines of $2,000. The jail time was suspended pending successful completion of the sentence of probation. The Commission deliberated on the facts before it and recommends to the State Board of Education that the respondent's certificate be permanently revoked.
Are there any questions? Will the petitioner please come forward, be seated, and identify yourself?
Hello, I'm Sarah Hulek, 301 Centennial Mall South, 6th floor, Lincoln, Nebraska, on behalf of the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Matt Bloomstead, petitioner in this matter. We are in support of the Professional Practices Commission's recommendation as it is consistent with prior cases for similar circumstances, and the facts and record warrant permanent revocation in this manner. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Will the respondent please come forward, be seated, and identify yourself? The record will reflect that the respondent did not appear. The proceedings are now closed. The board will make a determination in this matter at a later date. We move on to 5.2, the hearing in NDE case number 17-10. We're prepared to consider the disposition of this case, Commissioner versus Sean Neal. The board has been provided with the record of the Nebraska Professional Practices Commission proceedings containing the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and recommendation of the commission. All of the pleadings, exhibits, and a written transcript of the NPPC hearing are marked by the State Board as Exhibit 1. The notice of disposition hearing and the certified return receipts are marked as Exhibit 2. If there is no objection, these will be received. Seeing none, we will first hear from a representative of the PPC, then the petitioner, and finally a representative of the respondent. Each representative will be given 10 minutes to present his or her statements. The board will not receive any additional evidence or testimony beyond that contained in Exhibits 1 and Exhibits 2. Will the representative of the Professional Practices Commission please come forward, be seated, and identify yourself?
Hello again, I am Kelly Mothersbaugh, and I am representing the Nebraska Professional Practices Commission on the matter of Matthew L. Bloomstead versus Sean Neal. The respondent was a student teacher at the Norfolk Public Schools from August 2016 until December 2016. In December 2016, the respondent engaged in inappropriate electronic communications with a 14-year-old female student in which sexually explicit photos of the student were sent to the respondent in return for an adjustment of the student's science grade. The respondent also admitted to adjusting upward the final grades of 6 other students as favors to those students without asking anything in return. On June 1st, 2017, pursuant to a plea agreement, the respondent pled no contest in the Madison County Court of attempted contributing to the delinquency of a minor, a Class 2 misdemeanor, and on August 3rd, 2017, was sentenced to 6 months jail. The Commission deliberated on the facts before it and recommends to the State Board of Education that the respondent's certificate be permanently revoked.
Questions? Thank you. Will the petitioner please come forward, be seated, and identify yourself?
Sarah Hulak, 301 Centennial Mall South, 6th floor, Lincoln, Nebraska, here on behalf of the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Matt Bloomstead, petitioner in this matter. We are in support of the Professional Practices Commission's recommendation as it is consistent with prior cases for similar circumstances, and the facts and record warrant permanent revocation in this matter. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Seeing none, thank you. Will the respondent please come forward, be seated, and identify yourself? The record will reflect that the respondent did not appear. The proceedings are now closed. The board will make a determination in this matter at a later time. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I move that the State Board of Education go into an executive session to deliberate and receive advice from legal counsel on the contested cases.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by John and seconded by Rachel to go into executive session for the purpose of deliberating and receiving advice from legal counsel on the contested cases. Denise, please call the roll.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Rachel Wise,
Yes.
Patsy Co-Johns. 7 yes, 1 absent.
The motion is passed, and we will go into executive session to receive advice from legal counsel. Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
Yes.
I make the motion, we come out of executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it was moved by John and seconded by Molly, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. The motion, and is there any discussion? Denise, please call the roll.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
Rachel Wise,
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran,
Yes.
Pat Tim,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
Patsy Co-Johns, 7 yes, 1 absent.
The motion passes. We will now move to the action items on today's agenda. I'm asking for a motion concerning the PPC's recommended decision in NDE case number 17-09, Commissioner versus Eric Rybacki. Molly?
I move in Commission versus Eric Rybacki, NDE case number 17-09, that this board adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the Nebraska Professional Practices Commission, permanently revoking respondent's teaching certificate, and to adopt the final order proposed by legal counsel.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Molly, seconded by Lisa. Denise, please call the roll.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran,
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
Patsy Co-Johns, 7 yes, 1 absent.
The motion passes. We will move to 7.1.b, consider the PPC's recommended decision in NDE case number 17-10, Commissioner versus Sean Neal. Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move in Commission versus Sean Neal, NDE case number 17-10, that this board adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendations of the Nebraska Professional Practices Commission, permanently revoking respondent's teaching certificate, and to adopt the final order proposed by legal counsel.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Pat, second by Rachel. Denise, please call the roll.
Rachel Wise,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
Patsy Co-Johns, 7 yes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. Merry Christmas. We will now move to 7.2, the teaching and learning domain. 7.2.a, the approval of the definition of civic readiness has been postponed, so it's been withdrawn for more discussion, so it's been withdrawn for the agenda today. I would ask board members, after the discussion that they have heard today, and I'm sure are hearing in their community, that if you have comments that you would like to give to the staff, please do so that before the next meeting, because I know we've heard a lot of information, and you may have other ideas or have heard other things that we haven't heard in the past. So please give those comments, either send them to Ryan or to Dr. Epler. Pat?
I just note that I've already provided comments to the staff.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Maureen?
I move to approve the Nebraska Department of Education Summative Assessment Administration and Reporting Plan and Technical Reports.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Maureen and seconded by Molly. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Denise, please call the roll.
John Witzel,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Patsy Co-Johns, 7 yes, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Maureen, do you have an additional motion?
Yes. I move to adopt proposed revisions to Rule 23, 92, Nebraska Administrative Code 23, the basic skills competency testing of teachers and administrators.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Maureen and seconded by Lisa. Is there any discussion? Denise, please call the roll.
Molly O'Halloran,
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
Patsy Ko-John, 7 yes, 1 absent.
The motion passes. Molly, we will move to your domain.
I move to authorize the commissioner to contract with Heather Robbins. She's known as Heather's Behavior Support Services for the purpose of supports around the special education and MTSS in needs improvement and priority schools for the period November 6, 2017 through October 31st, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved by Molly and seconded by Rachel. Any questions, discussion? Lisa?
I just wanted to note for just the information that she's the only one with these particular skills, I believe, in the state. And so we're very lucky to have her.
Thank you. Your votes, please.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes?
John Witzel.
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
Maureen Nichols.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Patsy Ko-John, 7 yes, 1 absent.
The motion passes. Molly, do you have anything else?
I move to adopt proposed revisions to Rule 15, 92 NAC 15, regulations and procedures for the education of students with limited English proficiency in public schools.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Molly and seconded by Patrick. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, your votes, please.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Rachel Wise,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran,
Yes.
John Witzel,
Yes.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
Patsy Ko-John, 7 yes, 1 absent.
The motion passes.
I move to grant the Commissioner the authority to approve a contract with ESU 13 to develop innovative programs across the state to educate Nebraska VR staff, educators, and family members, and implement effective strategies that increase independent living and inclusion for students with disabilities in their communities and competitive integrated workplaces.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Molly and seconded by Maureen. Any discussion on the motion? Denise, please call the roll.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
Rachel Wise,
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols. Did I already ask you? Patricia Tim.
Yes.
And Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
And Patsy Ko-John, 7 yes, 1 absent.
Motion passes. We will move on to 7.4, the Policy Committee. I'm asking for a motion to approve proposed meeting dates for the board in 2018.
Second.
No, you have to make the motion.
Oh. Gotcha. I move we approve the proposed 2018 State Board meeting dates.
Is there any okay, Molly, is there any discussion? Rachel?
Yes, and again, because the current document does not have, and I know we discussed it yesterday, but it does not indicate that the State Board Legislative Retreat would be a work session on the 2nd. So if we're approving this document, I'd like to amend the motion to include on the February 2nd date a notice that the State Board Legislative Retreat would occur also on February 2nd.
Second to the amendment?
Okay. So we will first vote on the amendment. Votes, please. Yes.
Lisa Fricky,
Yes.
Patsy Ko-John, Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia
Yes.
Maureen Nichols?
Yes.
Patrick McPherson?
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The amendment passes. We will now vote on the amended motion.
Motion is amended.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Patrick. Molly? Any other discussion? Okay. Denise, please call the roll. Patrick and Molly was the second.
Lisa Fricky?
Yes.
Patsy Johns? Rachel Wise?
Yes.
John Eagle?
Yes.
Mario Holleran?
Yes.
Patricia Tam?
Yes.
Maureen Nichols?
Yes.
Patrick McPherson?
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
And the motion passes. We will move now to 7.5, Budget and Finance. John?
Thank you very much. I move to approve 2018 trust fund budget for the Nebraska Center for the Education of Children who are blind and visually impaired. Do I hear a motion?
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Okay, it was moved by John, seconded by Lisa, and we're going to take a short reset the computer.
It's not letting me save anything.
Think among yourselves.
Got a motion? I don't think so.
Yes.
May I make a short announcement? Well, I'll wait.
Okay.
Yes.
Rachel Wise?
Yes.
John Witzel?
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran?
Yes.
Patricia Tim?
Yes.
Maureen Nichols?
Yes.
Patrick McPherson?
Yes.
Patsy Johns? 7 yes, 1 absent.
The motion passes. Commissioner, is there any need for removal on the consent agenda?
No items.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Molly, thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Moved by Molly, seconded by Rachel. Your votes, please.
Patrick McPherson?
Yes.
Maureen Nichols?
Yes.
Patricia Tim?
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran?
Yes.
John Witzel?
Yes.
Rachel Wise?
Yes.
Lisa Fricky?
Yes.
Patsy Johns? 7 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, item 8 has some reports, some miscellaneous things for you to look at. And so we will move on to, we have no special presentations, so we will move on to item 10, a motion to approve the meeting participation.
Make that motion.
Okay, it's been moved by John. Is there a
Second.
Seconded by Molly to approve those who have asked for meeting participation in the coming months. Questions? Go ahead, Denise, call the roll.
Lisa Fricky?
Yes.
Rachel Wise?
Yes.
John Witzel?
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran?
Yes.
Patricia Tim?
Yes.
Maureen Nichols?
Yes.
Patrick McPherson?
Yes.
Patsy Co-Johns. 7 yes, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Item 11 is information and written reports for your, to go over. And Rachel?
Yeah, this was still on meeting participation. I have another question that
Sure.
did not have to do with the motion. But with NASB and with our participation in NASB, there's always an opportunity for members of Nebraska State Board to serve on the Governmental Affairs Committee and the Public Education Positions Committee. And I know those committees will be getting started, and the NASB President, John Kelly, I believe, is soliciting input from states for individuals to participate in those meetings. Most of those meetings are phone meetings, but I didn't know if you'd had a chance or talked to any board members about representing Nebraska in the Public Education
I haven't had anyone
meetings
come
and
say
the
anything
Governmental
to me.
Affairs Committee.
No, I haven't had anyone contact me. Is there anyone who is interested? Patrick? Which one? Go ahead.
Government, or
Affairs.
affairs, government affairs.
Okay, so, Rachel, how,
You appoint.
Typically, the president would make a recommendation to
so I need to write a letter.
on who we want representing in the Governmental Affairs Committee and the Public Education Positions Committee.
Okay, we'll put together a letter of recommendation. Okay, all right.
There you go.
Brian, let's put letters together and we'll get those sent in. You're welcome. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you too for volunteering.
Yes. Yeah, it will be very interesting, very interesting. Yes.
Just as you bring up NASB, obviously the CCSSO organization and on information items, I have a good spot to just mention this. Just in the last day, I've been asked to fill a vacancy on the CCSSO board. And
Good.
so it's actually, I'm pleased to be able to do that. It ends up just being a one-year vacancy right now that happens to be on the board. But it's also a good time, I think, as we have leadership and responsibilities between NASB and CCSSO. It's really good. And I believe the current president of NASB is from Mississippi.
Yeah, John Kelly from Mississippi.
And Carrie Wright from Mississippi happens to be the current president of CCSSO. And she's the one
that's
that
cool.
contacted me and asked me to fill that vacancy. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you. Well, good.
And-
We will have lots
and
of
also-
representation.
Scott Summers.
Oh, yes, and Scott's with the legal piece. Well, we're just represented
And
very
Rachel's
well.
coming in, so yeah.
That's very nice. Thank you all for giving of your time and talent. All right. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Lisa, did you have something?
Maybe after we shut down and then
Okay, all right, fine. Okay, seeing nothing, we will say a work session will be held on Thursday, January 4th at 2 p.m. and a board meeting held on Friday, January 5th at 9 in this room. Thank you for attending, and those who tuned in today, thank you for being with us. And this meeting is adjourned.